So I want to talk to you today about something that I'm very passionate about, but I'm sure you've probably heard a bunch of talks about this already, and that is identity, or who am I? So hopefully I'm going to give a little bit of a fresh perspective today, and I'm going to approach it from two different angles. So I'll do one in the first talk and then the second one in the second talk. So the Bible verse I'm using as a starting point is Galatians 6, verse 45 in the Message, which says, "Make a careful exploration of who you are and the work you have been given, and then sink yourself into that. Don't be impressed with yourself. Don't compare yourself with others. Each of you must take responsibility for doing the creative best you can with your own life." So in the first talk, I'm going to focus on that first part where we talk about making an exploration of who I am, or who you are. And then in the second talk, I'm going to focus more on not comparing yourself to others. Okay, so in the first talk, I'm going to talk about the fact that we are unique, but that our uniqueness is not an accident. It's not, it's with a purpose. So I don't know how many of you know. Well, this was Richard Howe who made this joke in a talk. He said, "You're unique, just like everyone else." And then he went on to say, "Unlike everyone else, you're not unique," which is saying exactly the same thing, just the other way around. But he was joking about that. And then apparently J.P. Moreland once said that uniqueness is not in itself something that gives you value. And please excuse this, especially if you're talking, but apparently he said that every pile of dog do is also unique. So I apologize, but I'm hoping that's going to stick with you, because the fact that you are unique doesn't in itself give you more value than anyone else. Everybody is unique, and there are many things out there that are unique. But our uniqueness is different because we are made in the image of God, and our uniqueness is purposeful. And that's what I want to talk about. But I'm not just going to focus on your uniqueness. I'm also going to talk a little bit about some traits that you might have in common with a bunch of other people, and some traits that you most definitely do not share with other people, and how those similarities and differences can help us understand ourselves better, as well as understand other people better. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. Let's not do that. Okay, so when you are conceived, you have a unique, even while you are being shaped in the womb, you already have a unique set of fingerprints. And the moment you are conceived, you already have your own unique DNA. And then, as you grow, your uniqueness grows with you. And there are many examples from things in nature that are unique. Every piece of grass is unique, so it's almost impossible to Google this because you get so many answers. It's like everything is unique in nature. You probably know zebra stripes are unique to every zebra, but also maybe you've heard that snowflakes are unique. So when you see them falling, it's all this bunch of white fluff, but when you look under a microscope, every single snowflake is different. But what is interesting about that is when they start to form, all the snowflakes have 6 arms. That's the way that water crystallizes. So they all have 6 sides or 6 arms. So there are only so many basic assortments of 6-sidedness that you can get. But then the moment they start falling through the atmosphere, their circumstances change them. So literally from 1 second to the next, the level of humidity or the temperature that they fall through changes the shapes of the crystal on each of those arms. And that is why they are unique. So they're not just, we are not just created unique when we are born. Our circumstances, everything that happens to you in your life also contributes to your uniqueness and to who you are today. So when we focus on the first part of exploring who we are, I first just want to say, why do we need to understand these things? Some people think personality tests or these things are a waste of time, or they just carry on autopilot most of the time. But I think it's super valuable to understand some of your natural tendencies and preferences, and to understand in what ways you are the same as some other people and different to other people. it just gives us a lot of insight. Sometimes it helps us to accept who we are. Sometimes we have some characteristics. For example, introversion is something that a lot of people battle with in Western culture. It's not seen as an ideal. If you've read Susan Cain's book about called Quiet, about introversion, it's the power of keeping quiet in a world that can't stop talking or something like that, because introverts often feel inferior in our culture, because being loud and outspoken is seen as something good. And if you're an introvert, oh, you're shy, you need to work on that. And it's not true. So that's why I think it's very valuable to look at that. And there are many different tools available to explore your personality or your temperament type. So I'm just going to use an example today of something that I've recently started using. I by no means think this is the best tool in the world ever, and I also don't think it should be the only tool in your toolbox if you're exploring who you are, but I'm going to use it as an example. So this is the Tall Trees leadership profile. So many of you may know Hetty Brits. She wrote parenting books. She's also trained, she has the same training as I do. She's also a speech therapist. And then she started writing and reading about parenting, and her and Marianne van Zyl together started the Tall Trees leadership profile. So it used to be just a little questionnaire somewhere hidden in this parenting book that you could like tick the boxes and work out what your tree type is. By now, it's an online test that you complete. It costs a bit of money. But then you get an adult profile, a teenage one for kids that has cute little videos so the kids can do their own test. And then there's also a parenting profile, and you get something like a 35-page report from completing that test that gives you quite a comprehensive overview of some of your characteristics. I keep pressing the wrong button. She also wrote a book called Unnatural Mum, which talks about the different tree types and how they behave as mothers. And she shares very honestly about some of her own struggles and challenges. So that's also a very good book. So the Tall Trees report gives you it gives you a work profile, a social profile, a life view profile, and an overall leadership profile. And then it breaks it down into these 6 things, which are areas where you can be a leader, strengths, then how, your communication style and how you tend to manage conflict, also frostbite, which is like things that you don't like, things that make you tired or that drain your energy. And then fertilizer are things that you need as the tree type that you are to help you grow. And the fast forward section is some pointers as to things that you can work on that, or areas where you can grow in. And then something else which is really good about this is that they have this framework which they call the appreciation tree, where it helps you to understand other people from the other side of the forest, because oftentimes you don't have to read all those little thingies, but the point is to help you understand that some people do certain things because they are a different temperament type. And if I think back to my high school years, there were so many people in my school where I kept thinking, what is wrong with you? Why on earth would anyone do what you just did or say what you just said? I had no understanding. I kept thinking there's something morally wrong with this person. They are broken. And we are all broken. But having moved on and learned some of these things, they're just extroverts. It's not really that bad. But then learning not just to understand, yes, people are different, and to respect their differences, but also to appreciate it and to realize that together we can do, we can actually be great. And within the body of Christ, that is more true than anywhere else. If we can accept each other better and love each other better, and we can realize that that other person has strengths that I don't have, I can give them the space, they can fulfill their role, and I can do my part, and together we can do something great. So within the Tall Trees framework, there are 4 basic tree types. So you can be a combination of some of these trees, and I'll mention that a little bit later. But I'm just going to give you a quick overview of these 4 basic tree types, just as a teaser. So ideally, I would have wanted each of you to do this test before we came here so you knew what kind you were, but costs some money. So that's why I'm making it voluntary. I'm doing it the wrong way around. So then if you do want to do this test, you can contact me and we can do that afterwards. But this is just to give you some idea of how these work. So I don't want you to sit here on screensaver now. If you are already on screensaver, just move the mouse. And ask yourself as I go through this whether you recognize yourself anywhere, or when you think about your significant others, whether it's your spouse or your child or your colleague or your flatmate, which tree type could they be? And could that explain some of the challenges you experience? So I don't know if there's anyone else here with some engineering capacity in their brain who thinks in graphs, like I do a little bit. But so this is how the 4 tree types would fit onto a graph. You have 2 axes. The one is introversion and extroversion, and the other one is task-oriented and people-oriented. So you have a palm tree who is a people-oriented extrovert. They are typically also of the emotional type. And then the pine tree is also people-oriented but introvert and less emotional. Then you have the rosebush, who is the task-oriented extrovert, and the boxwood, who is a task-oriented introvert. The boxwood is more emotional, and the rosebush is less emotional. So let's dig into those examples. So the first one is the pine tree. So if there was a one-liner for a palm tree, it would be, let's do it the easy way. Okay, so these are unemotional, people-oriented introverts. They are calm and peaceful. They value harmony. They value rest. They tend to be close to a small group of people. They do not like crowds. They do not like mingling with new people. They don't like a lot of excitement or a lot of change without prior warning. It is very difficult to get them moving if they are sitting on the couch or doing whatever they are doing. That root goes down very deep into the ground. So if you want to get them moving and do something, it takes a long time. I have 2 pine trees in my home, so I can tell you that with certainty. But then if you walk into a pine forest, you feel this calm. You feel the smell and the silence and just the restfulness. And that's pine trees give this stability, like the wood that the furniture is made of. They give stability and structure and certainty. So those are the pine trees. And here are some examples of some people or characters you might know who, as you can see, they value things like peace and rest. And so Manny the mammoth from Ice Age, apparently he's got some rose bush in him, but I think he's just a pine tree who got hurt a little bit. He likes his own people and he's very loyal. And little Winnie the Pooh there who likes rest and comfort. So those are the pine trees. And then I also added a meme to each one of them. This girl is venting all of these dark emotions, and the guy is just standing there, and then he just hugs her, and it says, "Your love calms my heart." And that's a typical pine tree. They'll just be there, and their calmness calms other people down. Okay. The next one is a boxwood tree. So a boxwood is an introvert who is task-oriented and emotional. They are people who are detail-oriented. They are scheduled. They are list people. They like to make lists. They want things to be right. They stick to the rules. That rules are very important to them. Plans are very important to them. And then they are very hard on themselves. So that's why we've got that depressed-looking lady there in the corner. Because they blame themselves for things a long time after the mistake was made. They're very hard on themselves. So they beat themselves up a lot. There's a lot more to say, but let me just keep it there. So there are some examples. So Nemo's dad you know, very cautious, very aware of dangers and risks, and Sheldon, who, you know, sticking to the rules, the agreement, the roommate agreement, the contract says this. So very black and white, and then planned, prepared, exact. And then I love, that's one, I think that's probably my favorite meme of all times, where Elsa tells all the other Disney princesses, you can't marry someone you just met. And they're all like, no, because that's exactly what all of them wanted to do. And I think she's a boxwood because she's also an introvert. Okay, and then there's our meme. I'm a boxwood, by the way, so that's like you won't let anyone else clean this thing because you know exactly how you want it, and then you're upset because nobody else is helping you clean. Yeah, so that's not good. But that's boxwood for you. Oopsie. Oopsie. There we go. We jumped. Okay. There we go. Now it's the palm trees. So the palm trees are the emotional extroverts, and they are people-oriented, okay? Not so much bothered with schedules and plans and rules. You know, what are rules for? So they are very original. They are very creative. They're loud. They're social. They're likable. They're charming. People love them. They love people. They're very impulsive, and they're full of joy, and they can multitask, and they have bright, creative ideas. And that's your palm tree. I think you can probably think of some. Every Disney movie has a palm tree in them because they're so likable. So they always have to have a palm tree in there somewhere. So I don't really want to label an emotion as a tree type, but I think joy is like this typical palm tree in Inside Out. You know, there's always a way to find the fun, and Dory just keeps swimming, and Tom Hanks, even in real life, I think is actually a palm tree. And Jack Sparrow, this was when someone else said to him, you are without a doubt the worst pirate I have ever heard of. And then he says, but you have heard of me. Because that's all that matters, you know, being famous. I think that's a classic palm tree thing to say. And Olaf, with his warm hugs, and like even in the midst of danger, he's like, I don't know if you remember, if you saw the second movie where he says, Samantha, he goes, Elsa, oh no, Samantha, I don't even know it's Samantha. And then he just laughs, you know, because yeah, that's such a palm tree thing to do. Oh, I keep pressing the wrong button, sorry. Okay, and then the first one on the left is a little bit nasty, but coming from a boxwood, this is why I didn't like the palm trees in school. They say, stop saying they didn't teach us that in school. They did, you were talking. And the boxwoods are resenting it because we were listening, you know, we were keeping quiet, sticking to the rules. But then also they are the ones who will take you on an adventure. You want to go on an adventure? You know, go to McDonald's at 2 a.m, it's an adventure. Because that's the kind of people that they are. Okay, so the last one is the rose bush. So these are extroverts, but they are task-oriented, and they are not very emotional. So so a rose bush, when you think of a rose, it's beautiful, it's strong, it's colorful. Everybody wants roses, they're expensive, but they also have thorns. Those are unavoidable. So rose bushes are strong leaders. They are your typical CEO type of people, but they can be prickly. They're very competitive. As you can see, that little boy who really is not happy about being third. They get the job done. If there's a one-liner for them, it's let's do it my way. Okay. Oh, I forgot some of the one-liners. The pine tree was let's do it the easy way. The palm tree was let's do it the fun way. The boxwood is let's do it the right way. And the rose bush is let's do it my way. So, okay, so are we recognizing some people there? So I don't know if you've seen the Cruella movie. I love that movie, and the Baroness. Pathological though, so to all the rose bushes, I apologize for using somebody with psychological pathology as an example, but she is such a classic. Like, why do I have to be the only one who is competent? Because she's doing everything right and nobody else can do anything right. And even from a young age, somebody told me her little brother is definitely a rose bush because he tells her, People must just stop doing two things, saying stupid things and being stupid. Because he sees all other people as stupid, and that can start at a young age. And then I think Moana is a positive example of a rose bush, because she's so determined, and she just didn't let anyone stop her, and she just kept standing up for what needed to be done. House is another not so pleasant example, a very prickly rose there. But again, very smart person who gets a lot of things done. And then that skipper in Madagascar who keeps telling everyone else what to do. And then Dame Maggie Smith, who passed away yesterday. She said she doesn't tolerate fools. And then they don't tolerate her. So she likes playing spiky old ladies. So rose bushes are beautiful, but some of the other trees in the forest sometimes have some difficulty recognizing their beauty. And each of these tree types have some specific tendencies to some specific sins. And as Christians, I think we should, when we look at this and we look at our own temperament type, we should realize I have strengths, unique strengths that come with my tree type. But I also have some vulnerabilities or some inclinations towards certain kinds of sin, and I should be aware of that. And this, just because you can't then use this tree type as an excuse to sin. Oh, I'm an introvert, so I don't need to mingle with these church people. I can just stay home. So describing these things or learning these things about yourself are not meant to give you an excuse to commit certain sins or to judge other people. Oh, look at that typical rose bush, stepping on everybody else like that. But rather to appreciate that God created certain strengths in each of us, and with that comes certain vulnerabilities. And when we become mature in our tree type, we can enhance the beauty without letting that sin grow stronger and bigger in our lives, but actually shrinking and making its influence on your temperament smaller. So you can also be a combination of 2 or even 3 of these tree types. So Hetty herself is a contra pine. She is a combination of a palm, a rose, and a boxwood, which is why she's this absolute mover and shaker. She can do almost anything. And, when she walks into a room, everybody knows it. But she had her first daughter as a pine tree, and they had massive problems getting along. She thought there's something wrong with this child. And when she took her to a psychologist, the psychologist said, no, there is nothing wrong with your child, but you have the opposite personality. She had no understanding for the pine tree-ness of this calm, shy, quiet child. She couldn't understand it. And this is where this started, was with that little girl, and Hetty realizing that she's not me. So again, if you do your test and you get your combination of your work, social, life view profile, you could be, for instance, a boxwood when it comes to your work, very precise, very oriented on detail, making sure you're scheduled and routine and all of that. And then when you get home, you're a pine tree. You couldn't be less bothered by schedule and routine. You don't want to move anywhere. You're not task-oriented. Your room is an absolute mess because you just want to chill. You're just peaceful. So that then you're a box pine. So when you do your test, you can get a fuller picture of that. And so then in the book Unnatural Mom, she points out how each of these tree types reflects something of God's character. And I really love this. It's so healing, especially for a boxwood, because we are the tree type that dislike ourselves the most. We don't like being a boxwood. We look at the other tree types and we're often jealous of them, and we think there's something wrong with us. But we reflect God's justice or His fairness. We're very big on responsibility, boundaries. We're big on correcting our children and making sure that they're disciplined. We value excellence. We serve. We can serve ourselves to death. We're very thoughtful of other people's feelings and needs, and those are all very godly characteristics. The palm tree, on the other hand, reflects God's joy and the joy that He wants to give us, His love. The palm trees love very well. They are super generous. they forget a lot of things. Their promises, their appointments, their schedules, what the time is, but they also are very good at forgetting mistakes. They are very open-hearted, and they have a childlike faith, and they are very hopeful. And my husband always says God is hopeful and optimistic about us, and I think that's something that makes them like God. The pine tree reflects peace, which comes from God, contentment, and then you know that verse that says the Lord is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and rich in love. That's a pine tree. They're faithful. They won't let you down. They have self-control and careful speech. They don't have a lot of pressure to say things all the time, which means they have more time to think about what they say. And then they're humble, and they're also big on selfless service. They're very happy to serve somewhere in the background. We know my husband is a pure pine tree, and he's a leader. He has very prominent leadership positions in almost all the areas of his life, but he would step back and step down in a flash if he didn't know the Lord. He does not do any of these things because he wants to. He does them because he's called to do them. He does them because he knows he's got something to offer, but he hates the limelight. He does not crave it at all. It doesn't do anything for him, except maybe annoy him. But so they are big on selfless service. The rose bushes, they show us some of God's honor and dignity. A rose bush will not let their children speak to them like without respect. They teach their children to have respect for them and for other people. They teach them obedience. They're big on commitment and, finishing something. I don't know, if you grew up a long while ago in Afrikaans, it's like, as jy 'n ding gaan doen, moet jy hom ordentlik doen, né? That's the rose. It's like if you do something, you must do it properly. That sounds like a rose bush parent right there. They are trustworthy, but they also trust other people. So they will give you a responsibility, even their children, and let you run with it and keep you accountable for whatever happens after that. They're fearless warriors. They they're very strong, and they're very decisive. So if you're in a crisis, you want a rose bush there. Because the rest of us might go, what are we going to do? And the rose bush will say, we're doing this. This is what. No problem. I'm going to handle this. I've got this. Okay? There's your rose bush. Okay. So I hope if you have been able to identify your tree type here, that you don't think I've now put you in a box. Because the whole idea of this thing is not to do that, but to realize that every rose bush, every palm tree, every boxwood, every pine tree is unique still. Because like the snowflake, maybe you have some natural inclinations, natural preferences, like introversion is a natural preference. Introverts get their energy from being alone, so they prefer to be alone or with the people that are closest to them. But your journey along your life has shaped you and changed you, and so you are uniquely you, but created with a purpose. So that is what I wanted to share with you about those types. I'm gonna end in a quick prayer again before we hit the breakfast table. Okay. Lord Jesus, thank you that you created each of us unique. Thank you that you've given us a metaphor of plants and tree types to understand ourselves better. I pray that what I said today will give each of us a little bit of more insight into ourselves, but also into the people that we love, and that it will be the start of a journey of self-exploration. I pray that you will bless each lady this morning in all her interactions and thoughts, and that we will just experience the joy of the palm trees this morning as we celebrate together. In Jesus' name, amen.